you ever wondered what would happen if Sanji and Zoro's roles were exchanged? Not just their battles, but the time they joined the crew, too. Could Sanji carry Straw Hats during hard times like Zoro did? And what would be the effect of this change on the full story of One Piece? The change in our story begins in Shelltown, where Luffy originally met Zoro. Now, instead of Zoro, Luffy will run into Sanji. But why would Sanji be in Shelltown in the first place? In this version, Sanji is sent to Shelltown by Zeph, the head cook and Sanji's father figure, to procure some ingredients for the Baratie restaurant. In the town, Sanji runs into Helmeppo, the arrogant son of Captain Axehand Morgan, the marine officer running the town. Helmeppo is harassing a girl using his dad's power, and Sanji, being the chivalrous king that he is, intervenes. When Helmeppo tries to get his marine officers to attack Sanji, our chef makes quick work of the marines and Helmeppo. Helmeppo swears to get back at Sanji, and he does. Later, Helmeppo uses a woman as a hostage to force Sanji to surrender. Helmeppo and Axehand Morgan then torture Sanji to set an example in front of the whole town that nobody can mess with the marines. This is when Luffy, accompanied by Kobe, run into Sanji in the same ground as Zoro was in. Much like Zoro, Sanji is being tortured, but Sanji actually eats the food on the floor due to his past, where Zeph and Sanji were stuck on an island with almost no food. By now, Luffy had heard about a cook captured by the marines and how he only fights using his kicks, which led him to investigate the man, hoping to get his first crew member. But Luffy is confused about Sanji's bravery when he eats the food on the floor. So, Luffy confronts Sanji as to why he would eat food off of the floor. Sanji replies that not a single grain of food must be wasted, because no matter the condition, food is sacred. Luffy then asks Sanji about his cooking, and with Sanji's passionate replies, Luffy tells Sanji that he wants to become the king of the pirates. While Sanji is caught off guard by Luffy's sudden declaration, he doesn't laugh at Luffy. Instead, Sanji reveals that his dream is to find the all-blue sea, where creatures from all seas exist. Luffy loves Sanji's dream and passion, and asks him to join his crew. When Sanji declines the invitation, stating that he has to go back to Zeph with the ingredients so that nobody goes hungry, Luffy agrees to help Sanji on one condition. After Baratie, Sanji will join Luffy's crew. While Sanji isn't ready to leave Baratie just yet, as he feels indebted to Zeph for saving him, Sanji doesn't really have a choice. In his current condition, Sanji cannot escape, with an execution order announced, just as it was announced for Zoro. Time is ticking, so the two of them team up and fight Axehand Morgan. The fight goes almost the same as it went with Zoro present instead of Sanji. But instead of Morgan getting slashed, Sanji uses his blackleg style to kick Axehand Morgan multiple times, sending him flying as Luffy hits Helmeppo, saving Kobe. Next up is Orangetown. Instead of Luffy dropping into the town through a bird, Luffy and Sanji make a pit stop to stock up on supplies on their way to the Baratie. In the town, Nami comes around a corner with Buggy's pirates behind her. After seeing a beautiful woman being chased by filthy pirates, Sanji has to step in. Realizing how much of a simp Sanji is, she decides to use the two to get the Grand Line's map from Buggy the Clown, who was ruling over the town. Sanji hides, and everything else goes the same as in the original anime, where Buggy orders Nami to kill Luffy. After she refuses, Sanji finally steps in and fights Buggy. However, this is the first instance of Zoro having a clear advantage. Due to Buggy's Chop Chop Devil Fruit, Sanji will have a hard time fighting Shanks' former crewmate. Every kick either missed clean or sent a body part floating off before it drifted back. Just like in the original sequence, Nami will fire Buggy's own cannon at him and stop Buggy temporarily. Eventually, Buggy catches up and Luffy fights him to save Orangetown. When Buggy separated his body parts, Nami quietly tied them up, leaving him stuck, and Luffy then punched Buggy away. Later, Nami proposes a partnership. She won't join the crew, but will help because there's benefit for her as well, to which Luffy and Sanji agree. Since we're already on the canon route, it makes sense for the Straw Hat crew to stop by Syrup Village, where they'll recruit Usopp, and the main antagonist of the arc, Kuro, is no match for Sanji. So let's move past directly into Baratie, where Zoro will make his entry. When Sanji returns to Baratie, it's with the Straw Hat Pirates. Zeph and Sanji bicker about it, as they do about everything else. And later, a hungry pirate from Don Krieg's crew, who has been defeated in the Grand Line, enters Baratie begging for food. Even though he knows feeding the pirate will make Don Krieg attack Baratie for supplies, Sanji refuses to let anyone go hungry. At the same time, Zoro enters the picture. Since this is Zoro's first appearance, Axehand Morgan never captured him and continued to work as a pirate hunter, and his name is more well known than what it was in the original story. Here, Zoro runs into Mihawk as his first appearance. At the current point of the story, Sanji will obviously lose to Mihawk anyway, so it's better to use the fight as a badass entry for Zoro. Even though Zoro loses the fight horribly, he leaves a strong impression on Luffy, who tries to help the injured bounty hunter, as Zoro cries and swears to never lose again. Both Luffy and Sanji are moved. Luffy wants Zoro to join the crew, and Sanji sees Zoro as his official rival now. Later, Luffy defeats Don Krieg to help Sanji and Zeph, like in the canon story. At the end of the arc, Nami betrays the crew and flees with Going Merry, which is more foreseeable in the story, as Sanji's constant simping made it easier for Nami to manipulate the crew. Now, this is where the real fun begins. As the Straw Hats chase Nami, they enter Arlong Park, the crew's first real test. In the canon story, we see Zoro fight Hachan and Sanji fighting Kurobi. But now, Sanji will fight Hachan, the six-sword style user. This is a rougher matchup for Sanji than Kurobi, who was a Fishman karate user. This is, of course, because of Hachan's blades, as Sanji cannot use Haki just yet. Still, Hachan lost to a heavily injured Zoro. And in fact, Zoro was so heavily injured from his battle against Mihawk that Arlong couldn't believe that Zoro was still standing. Considering that Hachan and Kurobi are considered near equals in strength, a healthy Sanji will win that fight with ease. He might leave with a scar or two though, but after the fights, the story continues the same, as Nami's hometown is freed from Arlong and the Straw Hats continue their journey. There are no real major fights for the Straw Hats for the next few arcs, apart from one key fight, one between crewmates. I'm talking about the fight between Zoro and Sanji in the Baroque Works arc. After the whole island throws a massive party for the Straw Hats, hoping to turn them over to the Marines while they're asleep for Luffy's 30 million berry bounty, Zoro solos 100 members of Baroque Works. This led to a massive misunderstanding, as Luffy wakes up to the whole town destroyed and starts fighting Zoro without hearing his explanation. In our case, it was Sanji who stayed on guard. The 100 agents are no match for Sanji either, but this fight with Luffy is interesting. Up to this point, it was widely considered that Zoro was basically equal to Luffy. While Sanji is considered to be behind the two, the gap isn't as much as people believe it to be. So while Sanji cannot win against Luffy in a fight, he can certainly hold his own for a while, which is what Zoro accomplished as well. With Sanji and Luffy out of the way, let's move directly into Alabasta, which is another bad fight for Sanji. While Luffy was busy fighting Crocodile, Sanji was fighting Mr. 2, also known as the GOAT Bon Clay, and Zoro fought Mr. 1, Daz Bones. Now with the fight switched, Sanji is straight up going to suffer. Mr. 1 is actually one of the strongest pre-time skip characters. Mr. 1's Devil Fruit, Supa Supa no Mi, allows him to turn parts of his body into steel. Zoro literally had to use plot convenience and armor to unlock Haki way before it was introduced to cut through Mr. 1. For Sanji, this would be impossible even if you give him the same level of Haki. As for Zoro's fight against Bon Clay, Zoro will have a much easier time than Sanji. After all, Bon Clay dealt a lot of damage to Sanji while changing his face using his Devil Fruit. Zoro's hands are rated E for everybody, so he'll be fighting Bon Clay from the beginning. This would mean that either a somewhat injured Zoro or someone else would have to help Sanji defeat Mr. 1 in a 2v1. Let's hope that Zoro gets lost trying to reach somewhere and runs into Mr. 1, right? Now, while Zoro is still maintaining a clean record, Sanji's record is about to get worse. The next major fight occurs in Skypiea, where Zoro faced off against Ohm, and Sanji, along with Luffy and Usopp, fought Satori. Now, due to the introduction of Mantra, the power creep is insane in Skypiea, and this becomes apparent in Sanji's fight against Ohm. Just like Mr. 1, Sanji cannot break through Ohm's Iron Cloud. Plus, Ohm's Eisen Whip makes it even worse for Sanji. Sanji's a close-range fighter, and with Iron Cloud and Eisen Whip, Ohm can keep his distance while chipping away at Sanji with ease. This is another loss for our boy Sanji, but it shouldn't come up as a surprise, because in the same arc, Sanji could barely do anything against Satori. It was only when Luffy ensured that Satori couldn't move that Sanji's kick landed, earning the 3 a victory. As for Zoro, this will still be a highly difficult fight due to Satori's ability to maintain a long range and observation skills. However, with Zoro's ability to cut through even steel and decent speed, Zoro will win in a fight against Satori, but it should be a high diff one. Our next big fights come in one of One Piece's best arcs, Enies Lobby. First off, Sanji versus Khalifa. And of course, Sanji didn't do jack to Khalifa because he doesn't fight women. Zoro though? Yeah, Khalifa is getting clapped. The same's the case for Jabra, whom Sanji fought in the canon. While Jabra is faster than Zoro, as per the ranking system shown in the Enies Lobby arc, Jabra is officially weaker than Kaku overall. This will be a mid-diff fight for Zoro at best. Now, let's shift our focus to Sanji's fight in Enies Lobby. Kaku was a member of the CP9 as well, with the Ushi Ushi no Mi, a Zoan-type devil fruit that turns into a giraffe. While Kaku gave Zoro a long battle, it was mostly due to plot convenience. As for Sanji, his skill was on full display in Enies Lobby. When Sanji fought Jabra in the canon story, Jabra was the best user of Shave, an ability similar to teleport, and Sanji completely blitzed him. Jabra couldn't even keep up with Sanji for most of the fight. Bro was literally having fun. The only thing that Kaku has going for him against Sanji is his destructive power. However, his large size and a lack of speed, especially in front of Sanji, would make Kaku lose the fight. Even Iron Body cannot save him, as Sanji was able to kick through Iron Body without any real difficulty. It was just an annoyance for him. This is a mid-diff fight at best for Sanji. Sanji's streak of victory continues continues as we enter Thriller Bark. In Thriller Bark, Zoro's main opponent was Ryuma, a legendary swordsman from Wano. Ryuma was a zombie in Thriller Bark and was limited to Brook's level of swordsmanship, which, to be honest, is nowhere close to Zoro's. Zoro's fight against Ryuma was barely a chapter long, even with the two being somewhat close in terms of speed and strength. It has already been established that Sanji is much faster than Zoro, and Ryuma's attacks don't have the same destructiveness as Kaku's, making this fight a walk in the park for Sanji. As for Zoro, his fight is against Absalom, and let's not waste our time here. This fight is probably as easy as fighting Axe-Hand Morgan from Orange Town. But wait, because before we move to the next arc, Thriller Bark had one of the most monumental moments in One Piece history, one that cemented Zoro as the GOAT. Yep, I'm talking about the nothing happened moment. When Kuma attacked the already weakened Straw Hats, Zoro made the ultimate sacrifice of taking all of Luffy's pain and fatigue from Kuma to save the crew. So, can Sanji actually absorb all of the damage and stand tall for his crew just like Zoro? The short answer is yes, he can. In the Skypiea arc, Sanji tanked a massive hit from Enel, which was likely hundreds of millions of volts. While Sanji collapsed back then, he has grown significantly since Skypiea. Plus, I believe that this could be one of those moments where Sanji would be pushed to such insane limits that some of his Germa genes would activate, allowing Sanji to tank Kuma's attack. I can easily imagine Zoro asking Sanji, how did this happen? And Sanji coldly replies, nothing happened, as he lights a cigarette. After Thriller Bark, Luffy's crew takes a back seat as Luffy focuses on saving Ace, going through Impel Down, and the epic showdown at Marineford. When the Straw Hats were split and on their trading arcs, Zoro was sent to Mihawk's Island, where he fought gorillas who replicated Mihawk's fighting style. Zoro was able to solo them with ease, and Sanji can solo these gorillas with ease as well. During the fight, Sanji will be moving a lot since the gorillas are massive in number. Eventually, he'll unlock Skywalk and new attacks from his spars with Mihawk. As for Zoro, he'd be sent to Kamabaka Queendom. While Sanji hated the island, it won't be as bad for our boy Zoro, who'd learn a ton about hockey and fight off against the chiefs of the kingdom, who rely on the 99 recipes of the attack cuisine. The next fight is actually even funnier, as Zoro would have to fight Watatsumi. Watatsumi is so huge that he makes Shirahoshi look like a normal-sized person, with an official height of 80 meters. In the original story, Sanji and Jinbei fought Watatsumi together to defeat him. If Zoro were to fight Watatsumi alone, it would be an interesting matchup. Watatsumi can maintain a certain distance from Zoro for some time. However, if he decides to do the roll attack, he's cooked. Watatsumi would only turn himself into a big, giant target for our boy Zoro, who can essentially one-shot Watatsumi with any of his named attacks at this point. As for Sanji's fight, it would be against Hody Jones, who was literally one-shotted off-screen by Zoro. Hell, Zoro didn't even use a named attack. It was literally just a slash with a sword. According to the Fishman who witnessed the fight, Zoro won against Hody because he was faster underwater. With Sanji able to use Skywalk and Diablo Jamba underwater, there's no universe where base Sanji would struggle against Hody Jones. In the Fishman Island arc, Zoro also fights against one of Hody's underlings, Hyozo. Zoro literally called him boring and slashed him, earning a victory. And Hyozo was actually trying to attack Robin in the anime, so there's no way that Sanji is letting him go easily. Hyozo is getting cooked underwater. And just as Sanji begins to build a strong win rate, he loses it to the greatest weakness he has: women. In the Punk Hazard arc, Zoro fought against Monet, who was a spy for Doflamingo on the island. Since Sanji is a darn simp, there's no way he's gonna fight Monet. Oh, she's half bird, you say? Well, she's half woman to Sanji, and that's more than enough. Just give bro the L, honestly. But wait, the ripple effect of Sanji's loss would be insane. If Sanji lets Monet win, it will lead to the death of Tashigi, possibly Nami, and completely ruin Lost plans. Now, Sanji can let any kind of damage happen to him, but he won't let a woman die in front of him. So in this case, Sanji might just have to break his rule of not hitting women and defeat Monet. Unlike Wano, where he asked Robin for help, Nami cannot win against Monet. And if this sounds too far-fetched for you, the easier solution would be for Sanji and Zoro to switch opponents, which, well, defeats the purpose of this video. So anyway, Zoro's fight in Punk Hazard is interesting too, as he'll be going against a former Vice Admiral and the head of G5 unit, Virgo. Virgo was a man trusted with killing Law, one of the strongest pirates from the worst generation. Plus, he defeated Smoker while holding back. Furthermore, Virgo was barely affected by Sanji's Diablo Jamba, only causing him to cough up a bit of blood. During his short scuffle with Sanji, Virgo broke a bone in Sanji's leg with just one kick and was fast enough to keep up with Sanji. What makes Virgo a strong match against Zoro is his armament haki. According to Doflamingo, Virgo's haki was strong enough to tank Law's spatial cutting power, which is considered to have the ability to cut through virtually anything. With Zoro also being a swords user, this will be a highly difficult fight. At this point of the story, Zoro had learned haki quite well too, but his usage is nowhere as good as Virgo's. The fight between Zoro and Virgo would be as difficult as the time Zoro fought Mr. 1 in the canon story during the Alabasta arc. In the canon story, Virgo does not commit to his fight against Sanji, opting to focus on Trafalgar Law instead. However, if we were to consider a true 1v1 between Virgo and Zoro, then Zoro might win only if certain conditions are met. First, Zoro needs to improve his haki usage throughout the fight, and Zoro also needs to speed up, as keeping up with a strong haki user who can also blitz you will almost always end in a loss. Now, Zoro has already proved in Alabasta that he can achieve insane growth in a single fight, and in the same way, Zoro will come off as the victor of this fight, but it will be with a lot of broken bones and a new level of haki. Now, in the canon story, Zoro's main opponent in Dressrosa was Pika. Pika's one of the strongest officers in Doflamingo's army, with the ability to use conquerors and armament haki. What actually makes this matchup horrible for Sanji is Pika's devil fruit, the Ishi Ishi no Mi. This Paramecia devil fruit allows Pika to assimilate his body into any and all stone he comes in contact with. On top of that, Pika can manipulate these stones and move freely through stone. During the original fight, Pika turned into a humongous stone golem, shifting his core from one spot to another, preventing Zoro from defeating the real Pika for a long time. And this is going to be Sanji's biggest problem. Sanji still doesn't have the same range as Zoro with his attacks. While Sanji could use Skywalk, it would be nearly impossible for Sanji to keep up with Pika. The fight would essentially be a whack-a-mole for Sanji, with the catch that Sanji can't even see the mole. To make matters worse, Sanji doesn't have an attack that would just annihilate all of Pika in one hit. Zoro literally slashes Pika's golem form in half to secure the victory. Unfortunately, this is just a bad matchup for Sanji, who has no real way of defeating Pika. But what does this mean for the events of the Dressrosa arc? Well, Pika's role is monumental in Doflamingo's plan. Pika's responsible for fighting off major groups, and to also focus on specific characters like King Riku and Usopp. So even if Sanji cannot defeat Pika directly, he has to prevent the giant golem from actively attacking someone else. Just like Zoro, Sanji can protect Usopp and King Riku easily, and if Sanji keeps using his strongest variations of Diablo Jamba, holding off Pika is possible. This would actually become one of the most iconic moments in One Piece, as Sanji was able to hold off a behemoth long enough for the Straw Hats to defeat all of their opponents, including Luffy's fight with Doflamingo. In conclusion, Sanji cannot defeat Pika, but he can stall the giant with extreme difficulty. Now, Sanji's entering the longest arc in One Piece, Wano, with a pretty mixed record. On the other hand, Zoro's record has been clean so far, so let's take a look at his fights in Wano first. In the original story, Sanji had two major fights in Wano, and Zoro's first opponent is Black Maria, one of the 6 strongest Shinichi of the Beast Pirates. Now, Sanji could easily defeat Black Maria, but with Oda's power of plot convenience, he doesn't fight her. It was Robin and Brook instead. While Robin defeated Black Maria, it was a mid-difficulty fight for Robin, and for Zoro, this is light work. Black Maria has 3 main attacks. Number 1, hallucinogenic mist, which creates illusions of loved ones to trap them. Number 2, spider webs. Self-explanatory. Number 3, poison. While Black Maria can try to stop Zoro by creating an illusion of Kuina, Zoro's discipline and focus will ensure he doesn't fall into such a trap. The spider webs would be a minor inconvenience at the maximum, but the poison, however, could damage Zoro. But that's pretty much it. The biggest disadvantage for Black Maria is her lack of durability. Even in her hybrid and spider form, Black Maria was easily defeated by Robin's Demonio Floor. Zoro wouldn't even have to use Enma against Black Maria. This is a mid-diff fight at best. That too because of Black Maria's poison. But let's look at Zoro's main opponent, Queen. This is a fun matchup to think about because we've got a ton of information to work with. We know exactly what Queen is capable of because Sanji fought him, and we know exactly what Zoro's capable of because he fought King in the same arc. First off, Queen is no joke. People love to clown on him because of how the fight ended, but this guy is an all-star for a reason. Ancient Zoan, cybernetic modifications, playgrounds, lightspeed lasers, and a hybrid form that is genuinely threatening. Sanji had one of the hardest fights of his life against this guy before his awakening carried him to the finish line. Speed is straightforward. Queen is slower than King, and that's just a fact based on how both fights played out and the general hierarchy of the All-Stars. Zoro is not getting blitzed here. The lasers are a different story though. Sanji dodged them because he was built around evasion. From Zoro's fight with King, we know that he is capable of dodging quite well, so Zoro is barely going to take any hits. The playgrounds are the most important factor in this entire fight though. These are not regular poison. They are engineered biological weapons that attack your internals regardless of how tough you are on the outside. Haki does not coat your organs. If Zoro takes even one playground, he's fighting the rest of this battle with a timer running in the background. Given that Zoro does not fight cautiously and actively invites damage, the chances of him eating one are very high. This is the single biggest threat Queen brings to this specific matchup. Durability is going to be the final hurdle. Ancient Zoans are one of the toughest things in the series, and Sanji needed repeated Ifrit Jamba combinations to actually put Queen down. Zoro's multiple Conqueror's Haki-coded attacks will eventually take Queen out. However, due to the poison, this makes it a high-diff battle. Now, let's look at Sanji's battles, as he's directly beginning in front of Kaido and Big Mom. Here, Sanji brings a completely different skill set compared to Zoro, and this changes everything about the fight. Post-awakening Sanji has regeneration, an exoskeleton, superhuman speed, and Ifrit Jamba. The question is not whether Sanji survives up on the roof. He does. The question is whether Sanji contributes the same way Zoro did. And to be honest, the answer is no. Not because Sanji is weak, it's because their roles are fundamentally different. Zoro is a damage dealer. His entire purpose on the rooftop was to land heavy, concentrated strikes on Kaido, and he was the only one actually hurting him early on through pure skill. Sanji is not built around that. He's built around speed, mobility, and sustained pressure against two Yonko that is actually incredibly valuable in its own way. With post-awakening Sanji on the rooftop instead of Zoro, the raid still succeeds, but it turns into far more exhausting, survival-heavy battles. Sanji's speed, regeneration, and mobility keep Luffy, Law, and Kid alive through constant intervention, intercepting attacks and limiting the chaos from Big Mom. But the absence of Zoro's high-end damage means Kaido takes significantly less punishment early on. Without that burst damage and the Haki block moment, the team absorbs more cumulative damage and loses momentum faster, forcing Luffy to carry an even heavier load in the final stages. The fight drags longer. The margin for error shrinks, but through Sanji's relentless support and Luffy's eventual breakthrough, the Alliance still pulls off a hard-fought win. Zoro also fought against King in the canon storyline, and now it's Sanji's turn. King looks terrifying on paper. A Lunarian with near invincibility in flames-on mode, devastating slashing attacks, and the kind of raw power that was sending Zoro flying outside the building. But once you actually break down how King fights, the cracks start showing fast. The biggest one is his battle IQ. King is genuinely an idiot. King commits to flames-on mode for long stretches, even when it's clear it's not working. He telegraphs his big attacks, and he never adjusts his game plan mid-fight. Against Sanji, who is constantly reading and reacting, that is a massive problem. Then there's the speed issue. Flames on King is durable, but slow. Flames off King is fast, but loses his invincibility. He essentially has to choose between being hittable or being slow, and either way, Sanji wins that exchange. Sanji, before his awakening, was already perception blitzing Queen in hybrid form, and Flames off King simply cannot keep up with that. And post-awakening Sanji gets faster with every Jamba on top of that. And knowing King, he's absolutely going Flames off to try and outspeed Sanji, which is honestly the worst decision he could make. This is just handing Sanji the fight on a plate. Durability is a real obstacle here. Flames on King is genuinely a wall, and Ifrit Jamba is doing the heavy lifting to get him through it. It takes a real combination of hits before King actually goes down. So this is not a quick finish by any means, but Sanji controls this fight from start to finish, mid-diff, and it's not particularly close once Sanji fully awakens. After Wano, we've truly only seen one major fight between Zoro and Sanji, and that is Zoro versus Rob Lucci. So let's see how well Sanji fares against Rob Lucci, huh? Well, Lucci is honestly a bum. I mean, it's not even a real fight. The only reason Lucci lasted as long as he did against Zoro was pure plot convenience, because the second Sanji called him a loser, Zoro one-shotted him immediately. That tells you everything you need to know. Sanji, who was damaging a Gorosei and deleting laser beams from existence at this point in Egghead, is not gonna lose to Rob Lucci. This is a stomp. And with that, Sanji scores another win at the very end. Overall, Sanji has held strong throughout the series, with his only losses being Mr. 1 in Alabasta, in Skypiea, and Pika in Dressrosa. Thanks for watching this video! Make sure you like and subscribe, and click on this video next for more anime content. Go on, check it out!